بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. There's a hadith that I have read so many times, I've come across so many times, I've heard many times in the past, throughout many years. It's something that I've come across or read or heard from certain scholars many different times. But subhanAllah, recently as I was reading this hadith, part of it struck me. It got me thinking. I started reflecting over that hadith. And so inshallah I want to share with you, it's two narrations actually, they're both of which are authentic, that I want to share with you in this video. And then briefly I want to share some of my thoughts and reflections on those two authentic narrations. So in the first narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, "You will follow the ways of those who came before you. You will follow the ways of those who came before you. شبرا بشبر." Shibra is a span, a hand span. وذراع بذراع, an arm span, or a cubit by cubit. A hand span by hand span, a cubit by cubit. وباعا بباع. The ba' is the distance between the two tips of a person when they extend their arms. So this is the ba'. So shibr, ذراع, ba'. So in other words, the Prophet ﷺ is saying you're going to follow the ways of those who came before you very closely, very specifically, in a very close manner. You're going to follow their ways, you're going to imitate them, you're going to follow their footsteps. And then the Prophet ﷺ continued to say, حتى لو أن أحدهم, so much so that even if one of them دخل جحر ضب, enters a hole of the ضب, which is an animal, kind of like a lizard. Their house is in the ground. They live in a hole in the ground. دخلتم, you will follow them. So much so, you're following their way, so much so that even if they entered a lizard hole, you will follow them in there. Can you imagine? I mean, following them so closely, and even in things that, even if they entered a lizard hole, you would enter it. Or some people from the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the Muslims would enter it. They're following the ways, the footsteps, the actions of those who came before them, of past nations, so much so that even if they entered the lizard hole, you would follow them in there. I mean, if you stop and think, why would someone even want to enter a lizard hole? That the dub, its house in the ground, that hole, and not only is it so dark and deep, but it stinks, it's smelly, because that animal lives in there. But the Prophet ﷺ is saying that some people from his ummah will follow the ways of those who came before so closely, step by step, so closely, following their footsteps, so much so if they entered a lizard hole, they would follow them in it. And then the Prophet ﷺ continued, وَحَتَّى لَوْ أَنَّ أَحَدَهُمْ ضَاجع أُمَّةً بالطريق لفعلتم. Allahu Akbar. He continued and he said, so much so even if one of them had intercourse with his mother out in public, out on the road, you would do the same. Allahu Akbar. SubhanAllah, I mean, this struck me. Even though I've heard this hadith so many times, I've read it so many times, yet this part struck me because unfortunately, we see, every time some Muslims go, so far, to such a huge extent in following and imitating those who came before us, other nations, other groups, and following them, imitating them in things, and we'd think that they wouldn't imitate them in certain things, yet they would do. And we see it now. The Prophet ﷺ is saying in this hadith, even if one of them had intercourse with his own mother, committing zina, not just with a random person, but with his own mother, in public, out on the road, you'd have someone from this ummah, some Muslims, who would fall into that, following them into that, imitating them in that. In another narration, which is also authentic, the Prophet ﷺ said, ليأتين على أمتي ما أتى على بني إسرائيل. Same thing will come upon my ummah, what has come upon Bani Israel. Footstep, step by step. حذو النعل بالنعل. Step by step. حتى إن كان منهم من أتى أمه علانية. So much so that if one of them has intercourse with his own mother in public, لكان في أمتي من يصنع ذلك. There would be someone from my ummah who would do the same. And then the Prophet ﷺ continued and said, indeed, Bani Israel split into 72 groups or sects, and my ummah will split into 73 groups or sects. All of them will be in hellfire except for one group or one sect. The companions asked the Prophet ﷺ, who is it, or which one will it be? Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, shows us the importance when the Prophet ﷺ is warning or telling his companions that this ummah will split into 73 sects. They didn't start arguing or why or this or that, or they didn't say anything except what they asked. Who will it be? Which one will it be? The one that won't be in hellfire. 73 sects, all of them in hellfire except one. So they asked, which one is that? Why? Showing that how much they cared, number one, to know the truth, to know which path will lead them to Jannah. They don't care about all the other ones as much as they care about this one, so they know to be from it. So they know to be from it. So that they can make it to Jannah, so they can be saved from hellfire. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was asked, which one is it, Ya Rasulullah? He said, Ma ana alayhi wa ashabi, what I am upon and my companions. What I am upon and my companions. Very simple, very clear. Our deen is very simple and clear. What the Prophet ﷺ was upon and his companions, radiallahu anhum, this is Islam that was complete, that was perfect. This is what we need to stick to. It's very clear, really. I mean, I don't know, it's mind-boggling sometimes how, this is confusing to some. Some people still can't grasp or wrap their head around the way to salvation, the way to saving themselves from hellfire, the way to Jannah, the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is very clear. The Quran and authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, what the Prophet ﷺ, the teachings of Islam that the Prophet ﷺ was upon, and his companions, what the Prophet ﷺ and the companions were upon, what they believed in, what they practiced, how they worshipped Allah, what they did. Stick to that. Very simple. Verify what is authentic, what's the proper way that they understood the teachings of Islam, and stick to that. And that is the straight path of Allah that will lead you to Jannah. And don't split and differ into those different sects and groups that went off and deviated from what the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were upon. And it's very clear and simple for people who really do their research and are sincere. It's very clear and simple. It's not complex, not complicated, it's not philosophical. Everyone can understand it. It's clear, and it's just a matter of sticking to that, following that. So a few points of benefit from those narrations. SubhanAllah. The first one is the emphasis in the Quran and Sunnah and the importance on having a strong Muslim identity. Having a strong Muslim identity. As Muslims, we should have a very strong and clear, distinct Muslim identity. That is positive in a good way. We stand out from others in a good way, in a positive way. Having a strong and clear, distinct Muslim identity. And there's also a warning about not imitating others, not following and imitating others blindly in everything that they do. Whatever they do, we do. Even if it's something that doesn't make sense, even if it's something that's not part of our deen, even if it's something that has no benefit in it for, even if it's something bad, as we saw, even if they entered a lizard hole, you'd enter a lizard hole. Even, one of them has intercourse with his own mother in public, someone from this ummah will fall into the same, following them blindly into doing the same. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ foretold this, and he warned us from this, and he foretold this. SubhanAllah, we see this happen already. We have seen this happen already by some Muslims. And not just some Muslims, even unfortunately some shuyukh who have fallen into these things. Not just in appearances and lifestyles and actions, even in celebrating things that a Muslim should not celebrate or should not be partaking in. Yet we have seen some Muslims fall into that. And subhanAllah, even some shuyukh falling into that is scary, and also shows us that we shouldn't imitate anyone or blindly follow anyone. Not even, someone who might be considered a sheikh or might have a certain status in the Muslim community. Don't follow anyone blindly, but rather stick to Quran and authentic Sunnah. Don't take whatever they say blindly and just follow it. look for what proof they have to support their view or what they're calling to, what they're saying from the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet. You know, don't follow the sayings of people randomly, the opinions of men, but rather stick to revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet. Don't tie your deen to anyone. If they're guided, you're guided. And if they're misguided or they go astray, you go astray. Don't tie your deen to any sheikh or so and so, and you know, or anyone. Not to me or anyone else. Tie your deen to revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is in the Quran and in the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet. You may use the help and assistance of others, learn from others, benefit from others, from scholars, from people who are upon that path. You benefit from them when they point you to the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet, but not to their own opinions. That's the distinction there. Anytime, and I'm saying this about any scholar, any sheikh, any person, including myself, anytime anyone tells you anything, any opinion that is not based in the Quran or the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet, it was not what the companions of the Prophet were upon, throw it away, put it to the side, and do not follow it, but rather follow what the Prophet and the companions anhum were upon. Very clear and simple. Very clear and simple. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. This is our deen. It's not about the opinions of people who came after the Prophet, but rather what the Prophet and his companions were upon. This is how we save ourselves from falling into these things the Prophet mentioned in these authentic narrations, from blindly imitating and following other people, past nations, without thinking for ourselves. This is how people fall into that. So to stay away from that, if we want to be saved from that and saved from hellfire, we stick to what the Prophet ﷺ was upon and his companions. May Allah be pleased with them all. And so it's important for us to know this so we can stick to it and we can warn others from deviating from this. Stick to it and then warn others, other Muslims, from falling into that, and advise them even, and call them to the truth, even if they're going to hate you for it, even if they're going to harm you, insult you, make fun of you. Don't worry about any of that. This is what the prophets were upon and what the companions were upon. Stick to that and call to it, even if other people are going to harm you for it. Stick to it. Be patient upon it and don't give up, and seek your reward. Make sure you're sincere so you can seek your reward on the Day of Judgment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And don't give up, don't reciprocate people's harm, and follow the beautiful example that the Prophet ﷺ has set for us in his Sunnah. Barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khaira, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.